Meeting, date November 27th of 2017. Before we get going, if we could all rise for our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Almighty God, we come before you with great thanksgiving and for the blessings that you've bestowed in our community, especially over this last week where there were a lot of Thanksgiving baskets that went to those that were in need within our community. And as always, Father, we pray for guidance, wisdom, and discernment. And we each pray to you in the manner we were taught. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I want to welcome everybody in the audience tonight. We'll try to clear the room as soon as we can. So first on the agenda, I'd like to call up anybody here pertaining to the West Street Fields, Concom Water Department, and Park and Rec. Water Department?
I'm from the water.
Come on up.
Water commissioners.
Okay. We have anybody here from Conservation?
The three of us.
Want to come up?
We're gonna need some
Make
chairs.
some room.
Just gonna grab some chairs.
I'll sit back here, it's safer.
So welcome everybody. I also want to add that I've invited Joshua Greenblatt here tonight. He is one of the heads of the GAA, and just wanted to get his feedback. I don't know if anybody saw our last meeting, but I'm really trying to promote a little bit more communication, between our boards. Okay, as I find that I find most of the time it's a lack of communication that is the problem within certain areas that we're trying to get something accomplished, right? So with that being said, I wanted just to have an open dialogue tonight about some issues that I see here in the town based on feedback I get from our general public. Okay, and that's why we're here, is to kind of talk to our citizens and maybe look at some things that they might like to see in town, right? So we had a conversation with Parks and Rec at our last meeting, and we were just talking about a bunch of stuff, but mostly East Main Street, how that progress is going, and the problem that I see, okay, is with West Street, okay. We have some fields that have been of great use to our children here in town. Both from lacrosse standpoint, soccer, and everything else, right? But it was highly noted at our last meeting that that's really not what those fields were initially designed for, right? And we get that. So initially, my thought was, okay, how do we do a little better job in getting those fields prepped for next year? Okay, because what I was finding in the feedback I was getting were kids were starting to get hurt on those fields. The turf was getting really hard, and then we had some holes in certain areas where kids were literally planting, their foot in a hole, okay, and either turning an ankle or spraining a knee. And again, we had a visitor, town come in, and a girl was, I'll call it severely hurt based on her planting, all right, and she turned her knee and whatever. So we don't want to see anybody getting hurt, down at those fields. So initially my thought was, okay, what do we do to get those fields back and, where we need them to be? But maybe that's not, the area where we want to go down from a long-term perspective. But even from a long-term perspective, there were some things thrown out last week that were good ideas, but we still, I think, need to, figure something out for West Street, as we would need them at least for the foreseeable future. Okay, to have our kids be playing some games on them. So the reason why I wanted to bring both the water department and Concom in is get some ideas and maybe some feedback on what we might be able to do to maybe prep the fields a little better for next year. And I know there are a lot of concerns, okay, in terms of what we can do down on the fields, right, from a water standpoint, right. And also from a conservation standpoint, but again, sometimes dialogue, together. Sometimes we'll kind of, come up with some solution. All right, and that's what I wanted to try to accomplish tonight, and then get some questions from the board. Also talk to Josh a little bit about what his thoughts are about how we can move forward with the fields, and maybe how we're going to utilize East Main Street and have kind of a long-term solution for that. So let's first start with your thoughts on improving. Oh, thank you, Mike. If you could absolutely introduce yourselves. I'm sorry.
I'm Carl Schroeder, Chairman of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
I'm Laura Repplier. I am a Conservation Commissioner.
Okay.
My name's Stephen King. I represent the Water Commissioners Board for Town of Georgetown.
Okay. All right. Great. And
Steve Pajemski,
for everybody.
Georgetown Conservation Agent.
All right. So thank you for that. So again, to my question, where I know there have been discussions in the past with Park and Rec about what we might be able to put down. I know they have some thoughts about what we might be able to put down on that field, just to improve it, right? Not so much to overhaul it or whatever. We know that there's organic matter that would have to be put down, things like that. What is from both boards? I mean, what is the attitude about putting something down?
I mean, from our perspective, we're looking at species and habitat protection. Obviously the land is under the purview of the water department, so we're not prohibiting those things from being put down from our restrictions. We were looking at the usage, minimizing that from a specific time perspective. So, we don't really have any heartburn with doing those kinds of improvements to the property down there. We just to take a step back, the commission was instrumental in acquiring that property that we talk about at East Main Street. And that was due to negotiations on a hearing, and we acquired that land for the town of Georgetown, knowing that we eventually wanted to try and minimize some of the usage on West Street to move it once we fleshed out East Main Street and got that online. So, this is kind of the long-term plan. But from our perspective, we wouldn't really have any specific restriction. We're not mandating the no fertilizer. That's not coming from us.
Yep.
We're not mandating, don't fill potholes. That's not coming from us at all. We're talking about some areas of mowing and restrictions of some timeline, specifically when the rare species turtle tends to come out basically just before dusk. So those are kind of what we're looking at for restrictions.
Okay, and what timing is that?
It's about 6:30 to
It's
9.
It's a very short time frame. It's 1 month from May 30th to June 28th, and it's between 6:30 in the evening to 9 o'clock in the morning. And
So-
this is
so-
an endangered species of Blanding's turtle.
This happens to be a hotspot in the entire state.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
actually, the state spends money in terms of research itself at that location. So we've spent money, and the state itself spends money to research because it's a very rare location.
Okay. How big of a population are we talking about, by the way?
I don't recall offhand, but we actually probably can pull that data because from the research reports,
It's okay. Sorry, I was just wondering if because I
Unfortunately, the turtles just don't do what we say. They've been breeding down there for a long time, and you can't tell them not to go out there.
Yeah.
You've got the riverfront area down there, and they're gonna go up there.
Okay.
It is a significant breeding site in the state. And every year, as Carl said, the natural heritage people who work for the state protecting endangered species, they send people down there monitoring those turtles. They track them. They have them all numbered. They
actually put GPSs on them.
Yes. It's
So-
extremely important.
Little GPSs they glue on them so they can track, so they actually know where they go
Yeah.
and can know where they actually nest. They actually put little cages over their nests so the raccoons and skunks don't dig up the eggs. So they're really trying to improve the breeding, and we're trying to work with them and trying to balance that between use of the fields and trying to protect the species. So we understand the need for usage in the town, but we also have this dual duty
Yeah.
here to try and deal with this.
We also granted enormous waivers for the East Main Street project with the express goal of reducing the pressure on the West Street fields. And so that was an agreement we came to with Park and Rec, and Jim Demento was at all of our meetings, and this was done with a partnership with Jim and the Park and Rec. And so we all agreed that this was kind of a win for them, a win, you know,
And
for
they
our
realize they realize
concerns
this too, and they realize that it's important to get the East Main Street properties online.
Oh, well, I think we all.
Essentially, look upon this as
Yeah.
more of a reserve type field as opposed to the
Yep.
everyday use field, and not really spend so much money on that and put more of the funding into the
Correct.
better, newer property.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, when that was done, you know, I think part of the issue with West Street is the amount of usage, you know, that has been getting, you know, for the last few years, you know, while Pembroke was, you know, getting online as well. So, you know, we certainly, you know, appreciate that. Hey, Josh, if I could, you know, touch upon, you know, the GAA's, you know, thought about East Main Street. Is that going to be enough between that and Pembroke to house all the activity that we need fields for in the spring, for example, between soccer? I don't know if you know about lacrosse, but
So I can speak specifically about soccer. I've been a soccer coach for 5 years, on the board for 4, president for 2, and for those 2 years I've been on the GAA, so I've been involved in all those conversations. I can't speak specifically to the other sports. You know, basketball is one of them. Obviously they have their own thing going on. Lacrosse, I think, would use, you know, some of the same fields that soccer would. But from soccer's perspective, East Main is not designed in the best way for soccer use. I mean, we can certainly fit something on there, but I think East Main was designed as a baseball field, and so we can certainly retrofit a soccer field. I don't know exactly what size. We use different sizes for different age groups. I don't know exactly what size could fit in there, but it certainly could alleviate some of the pressure on West Street. Currently, we use West Street for practices only. We've actually had not only some reports like you're giving about injuries, but also we've had different towns come in and actually protest play on that day because of conditions. As president, I've gotten calls from coaches saying, this team doesn't want to play us, the referee is on the fence, what should we do? And, you know, we muddle through it and we make it happen, but I think there's a lot of pushback for the use of West Street, specifically game fields. You know, we're kind of beholden with Essex County in terms of scheduling for games and the games fields that we use. You know, they're not there auditing all of them and saying, you know, this is suitable, this is not. But I think when you see a field that's not suitable, you know it. And I think West Street is at that point at this time. So to alleviate some of the use on Pembroke, which we do our grade 6 field, to alleviate some of the use at behind the high school, which is our grade 4 teams, we do practice at West Street. We have a grade 6 field there and 2 grade 4 fields, and that gets heavy use throughout the week. Specifically on, you know, Wednesday and Thursday are probably our biggest days. So East Main could eliminate some of that. It would probably be used for practice, but again, these are all thoughts that I've had and that the soccer board has discussed. GAA is meeting tomorrow, and we'll certainly craft, you know, our positions on what we hope to see in the future. But from a soccer perspective, that's kind of where we're at. And the current landscape really doesn't give us the ability to rest any field, which I know is a big part of field maintenance. So we'd like to see, you know, some more fields come online, some maybe different use of fields. I'd love if Pembroke could be looked at also, because I know that field number 4, which is that multi-field closest to the school, I don't think that's being used as originally advertised. So I would love, if we're doing a whole audit of all the fields, you know, we can kind of make the best use of what we have.
So if I kind of get you right, if East Main Street comes on, you would still continue to practice though down at West Street.
We would still need West Street.
You still need West Street for practice.
Yeah.
You to alleviate, you know, any kind of overusage of the other fields.
Yeah. So.
And again, how many days of practice? Is it every day that?
Yeah. So
people
Monday,
practice?
we offer our coaches Monday through Friday, between 4 and 8. That's what we put on for our permits. Primarily, you know, there's a few teams on Monday, a few teams on Friday, but it's Tuesday, Wednesday the heaviest, Thursday. But there's those Wednesdays and Thursdays are really heavy use.
Mind if I get this, just the seasonal dates of the soccer for fall and spring?
Yep, so typically the spring begins in the first week of April and ends the first week of June. And then the fall is first week of September and ends the first week of November. And that's the other thing with soccer, it's a 2-season per year sport, so it doubles the amount. I mean, you know, baseball is once a year, lacrosse is once a year. So soccer does, you know, probably have the heaviest usage of all the fields. But yeah, so we would still need to use West Street in terms of practice, because I don't think we can get enough out of Maine. And Pembroke, we're trying to, you know, really tread lightly on. We only do grade 6 games there, and we've had great feedback, and towns have come in and have been really impressed. And it's kind of a showpiece for us as a program. We really want to, you know, take good care of that one. We also do a grade 2, which is just our in-town program on what's called Pembroke number 3. It's the one below, kind of where they're building that new structure down there at the school. And just for example of heavy use, you know, we have practices during the week, games on Saturday, 3 games on Saturday. You know, that field isn't watered. It doesn't have a maintenance plan in place yet. And we're already seeing some deterioration of that field, which was beautiful, like the G6 up above. So, you know, just use alone is going to cause some of the conditions that we're seeing on West Street.
Okay. All right. So with that said, you know, it's obvious that we still need West Street until, again, that long-term plan comes around, and we spoke about that a little bit last week, which we'll bring up, or 2 weeks ago, which we'll bring up again. But from a water standpoint, again, I know Parks and Rec had some suggestions, and I don't know the last time you've spoken with Park and Rec about it.
They came in July of this year.
July of this year?
A representative come in and gave us a little background information on some loom they wanted to install on the fields. We just had a couple follow-up questions with that gentleman. His name escapes me right now. But we haven't heard anything back from Parks and Rec since then. That initial kind of meeting we had with that gentleman. So we asked him to go back and just verify the materials that are going to be used as far as what's in the loom, test for any metals, chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, all the information that we need to know that's going to be that close to our water source.
So at this point, you're waiting for Parks and Rec to get back to you?
We asked them to resubmit some testing material on the materials they wanted to use.
Okay.
We haven't got anything back yet.
And that's as of July?
That's of July of this year.
Okay. What was your initial thought? I mean, do you guys have any notes as far as what your initial thoughts were to what they were kind of proposing?
No, we didn't have any objections to it, as long as it just fell within the requirements of what we're permitted for through our DEP, and just really wanted to get an understanding of what the material was, where it was coming from. You know, that's very important to us as far as where they're hauling out of. And
Steve, was that a fertilizer, or was that would you say a loam? Or
it was like a loom mix. They had some organic materials in there. It gave us a little bit of the information, make sure there's no hazardous materials involved in it, any arsenic or lead or anything like that. But we wanted some other materials tested in that soil that you're proposing to use. We never got that information back.
Okay. Kind of a different sense of what we got a couple of weeks ago, was it? You know, because I think they were waiting, you know, I thought it was from you guys. Didn't they say they had some stuff they were?
I watched the tape and they referenced some used brewery products.
That was
Grains, wheats, or something, hops.
Yeah, that was never
There
really.
was some mention of topsoil, yes, and there was a mention of that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, so
Yeah.
just if you could explain to the people at home, just the importance of this is because the aquifers are underneath this field.
Our
right?
water treatment plant
And
and our
that's-
water source is directly abutting the West Street soccer fields. So any chemicals or fertilizers that are used could potentially contaminate our water source. Is obviously dangerous, and we don't want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. If they tested what they, you know, kind of brought to you, and they came back with some positive, you know, answers for you, how quickly, is that process for you guys to say, yeah, okay, you know, this has been tested, have at it.
It's pretty clear cut. I mean, then it would just be a matter of materials that the actual construction equipment they want to use to perform their practice of putting down the loom, or make sure they're falling within the conservation guidelines next to the wetlands area. Pretty much as simple as that.
Okay. Because I would think that they would want to do it, section by section, and probably not the whole thing. I would think. Would conservation need any?
We might, depending on, more, if I had more data, we might have to do a limited type of permitting, what we call like an RDA, which is a relatively simple process. It's not a long hearing process to do that, but it codifies what would allow them to do. We would end up with like what we call negative determination, which would allow them to proceed.
Okay.
A lot of the area is actually out of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, so the majority of those fields, they could just go through me and the water department and just have its own dialogue. I can authorize it real time.
Okay.
It's only if it's in a very specific window or if it's in a specific area. Like I said, 90% of those fields are out of our jurisdiction. We have no authority to say anything over a large portion.
I do have a question about what the natural heritage people would say about the timing of that operation. Coming up to the end of May. Once the end of May comes, the turtles are nesting, and after that point, disturbance to the field could affect the viability of the nests that are there. Typically, the hatchlings emerge around the end of August, early September. So that window between the end of May and early September, what could potentially be a really harmful time to be disturbing the ground there after the nests have been dug, the eggs have been laid, and we're waiting for the hatchlings to emerge.
So we
Are
could,
those on the field though? The
Yes,
nets?
they
yeah,
are. They're
yeah.
everywhere.
Oh, they're on. They're,
We
They
asked
prefer-
them not to, but
They come
I thought it was
anyway.
out in the woods.
No, see, so did I. I've never seen
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, they're definitely there. I've actually, as coach, I've always had to keep my kids away from it. The way that we line it, and some of the fields come closer to the wooded area, but I would say within maybe 10 yards of the wooded area, I've seen nests, the rocks.
the reason they go on the field is because it's cleared. Because the sun beats down on the ground and the eggs warm up and hatch. If they're in the woods, they wouldn't warm up and they wouldn't hatch, so.
Okay.
We actually asked, we put in place a special mowing plan a couple of years ago to attract the turtles to the areas that they actually prefer to nest in and keep them off the field as much as possible. And so we left, that kind of slight rise between the main field and the little back field? We leave that kind of unmowed, and we leave it unmowed along the edge of the back as well, because they love nesting right in those spots there. So we were hoping to attract them into those areas that they naturally like anyway, and keep them off the fields as much as possible. I believe we've had to move 1 or 2 nests in the past that were in the fields, and that's really non-ideal. But I think it's worked really well, this mowing plan that we came up with. It has kept them kind of off the fields more than they were.
So we've actually got researchers from UMass out there actually, again, collecting data, tracking these things, again, keeping track of these things literally on a daily basis, where they are, where the nests are, and they do this every year.
So what is, I know your concern is when they put this dirt down in May, which is really the beginning of the season. What would be ideal in your eyes to put down any?
Before they come out of hibernation would be ideal.
That would be the best.
Which
When
is
it's still, well,
Probably in the
before
Mar-
they, I
probably
mean,
in the
they
March
freeze
timeframe?
over the winter.
March.
So before we have a big thaw and they come out of their hibernation, that would be end of March, early April.
So really to start a field in the fall would be.
That's when they're hatching, you said, correct?
Well,
That'd be the
yeah, they
best
tend to hatch like up to, so there may be some stragglers
Yeah,
into
once you-
mid-September.
Yeah,
Yeah,
once you
so you
start,
can
once
start
it starts
from
getting
that.
cold weather, they're not hatching anymore. So actually, even into time like now, there's no turtle activity out there right now. So you could do work, in the October, November
If you're gonna groom
timeframe.
a field, I think that's the best time to do it anyways in the fall.
It's a good time to start.
So you're not competing with weeds and
So I saw Jim Demento come in. Hi, Jim. How are you?
I know I had this meeting at 5:30, but I was still at work. So
No sweat. Don't worry about it. We just got some feedback from Steve. Steve, do you know Jim?
Yeah,
Steve.
he
Yeah,
came by
sure.
me.
How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Steve was just telling us from the standpoint of that new material that you were interested in putting down,
Okay. So,
that they were waiting for some feedback from you guys.
no, so that was, Dave originally proposed that material, and there was some concern about the yeast that was in it, and they wanted more data before they went with that material. And at that point, David decided not to pursue it any farther. But
Why is that?
Oh, so let me finish the story, and you might understand it. So then I went and tried to just pursue some what's called field dressing. Over the years, we had when they scraped made that field, there was a big pile of loam that sat in the corner, and for about 20 years, we dipped into it to fill in pots and holes, and we ran out of it about 10 years ago. So I went to the water department. I said, look, can we get just some loam down there to fill in some of the low areas, they said I could if we tested it. Every 50 yards we tested for VOCs. He gave me a whole list of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I pursued multiple places trying to get someone who would do that during the peak of the season. They said, no, we're not, they weren't interested in pursuing that. But as I made headway, Dave found out that I had taken that avenue and hadn't gone to the park, and the Park and Rec didn't want to pursue that option of top. Now, we had pursued this option for about 10 years, trying to get the water department to approve material so we could field dress it like the old days, and then all of a sudden, because the members of the Park and Rec said, look, it's not worth pursuing. I was kind of mad because I spent a lot of hours going that route and met with the water department, and because that's the only choice is to take little areas that are low, got little holes, and what are you going to do? I've had a number of people say that the quality of not the quality of the terrain is off, you know?
Yeah.
And I pursued it with a little bit, trying to find it's called a top cedar. It's a top, you put like 3 yards in it, and it goes across and kind of just levels it out. And it's just a small dressing of about a quarter of an inch.
Yep.
And you just do it in certain areas that are, but it's not really putting down, it's just trying to get some loam on that field surface.
Yeah. Well, is there a way to re-explore what Dave
Well,
has?
I hope so. My next
thought?
meeting, with the feedback from the selectmen would help, and some of the other members. We have $10,000 and a fund for the maintaining of that field. The 200 yards of loam that they were going to let us stockpile there, not use it, just have it there. So over the years we can redistribute the area. It was about $10,000, so it would give us the material we need to. And it's it's just you know how it is. There's places that get whole divots in it.
Yeah.
I think that would be the only thing we'd want to do in those fields. It would provide, and I think that's the only thing the water department was really interested in pursuing as well. They didn't want us to rip up any field, or they were concerned about, like you said, brewer's bath has yeast in it. Yeast gets into a wellhead, and I think they were concerned about the implications of that.
Yeah. So would you concur with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So, Jim, by the way, this is Josh
And like I
Greenblatt
said, I don't-
back here.
yeah.
We've met before.
Is-
Yeah, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Just like I
You
said,
know,
this meeting was 6 months ago. I think that's when we talked about it as a
Yeah.
possibility. They were very cautious about doing anything. So I have my list, and like I said, I stopped pursuing it last spring because it just didn't seem like it was going.
So you're saying this loan might be an option just to kind of
I still have to
improve
find.
and
Yeah. I have a, so you have a stockpile of it there that is good loam. It's been tested for magnesium and all the other stuff. They wanted it tested for a number of different stuff.
Mhm.
It has to come from a clean source, and then you just field dress it as like you said, every March if you field dress it in an area.
I mean, I think that would work. I mean, just to
So
alleviate
like I said, it's
some
not
of
going to
the
be a miracle,
injuries.
but
and-
it's going to be an improvement.
Yeah.
A definite improvement. I mean, I was at a soccer game, and I had a friend of mine who I haven't seen 10 years come up to me and say, why is West Street has so, he complained about his daughter playing soccer there, he's not even from Georgetown.
No, and that's what Josh was saying. We've had people from outside coming in, and they're questioning whether their kids should go on the field, and so on. I'm gonna open it up to the board. Anybody have any questions for any of our guests?
I'll go. Yeah, I gotta ask one question, it's probably a big no, but, would artificial work there at all, long term?
Artificial turf.
Okay, that's what I said, probably a big no, but I wanted to ask.
That would have to get
it
involved
out.
in National Heritage, and they wouldn't allow that, because turtles wouldn't be able to dig their nests in there.
Yeah, that would be.
Well,
It also
on that,
contains
you gotta-
arsenic. Rubber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I just wanted to ask and make sure, that's what I said, probably a big no, but get it, at least ask the dumb question. Not afraid to ask a dumb question. So, that's about it, I mean, I got no other
Right.
answers,
Dave?
I mean,
Yeah, my feeling on the whole issue is, and I brought it up the last time, is I think we need a long-term plan to abandon West Street fields. They were never intended to be fields for, to be played on. So, again, I'll call for a study to find an alternative to abandon those fields. Put another $10,000 into the fields, Jim. I'm not so. I mean, to me, I think we're throwing good money after bad. That's just my feeling. I don't know what other solutions there are in town. I know there's a shortage of fields as it is. I mean, I asked the question the last time, and I nearly got run out of town. I said, if we just shut it down, will we have enough fields for the kids to play on? And the answer was definitely no. We invested a ton of money into the Pembroke fields. Now we have East Main Street. There's got to be one more location to replace those west fields. And some people have talked about the upper fields at the high school. Let's put in some money into those as an alternative, because to me, I just think we're using a tract of land that's really not intended for those purposes. Period.
The
And I
one
think
of the
we should
comments
think
talked
big.
about wells, that we're gonna be off those at some point because of the growing of wells and the need of wellheads in that area in the future. I don't know if that's.
If we ever expanded upon our plant or our well source, obviously our first investigation would be the West Street fields. It's the closest.
Right.
But that's just my feeling. I think we should have a long-term plan rather than just throwing a Band-Aid on this thing. And
But we spend 14,000 a year in those fields with the water, so even putting 10,000, if you say, okay, we're gonna be up those fields in 10 years, putting some loam down there to make some
Yeah.
improvements over 10 years would be $1,400, and we'd probably save that on the water because we're just dropping water into sand now.
Well, I hope
So
I
I
would
do
hope
think-
faster than 10 years, Jim. I would
Well,
hope
like
we
I
have
said-
a 3 to 5 year plan to get off those fields.
Yeah.
The only way you're gonna do that is doing the top of the school, and even then, I'm not sure you're gonna do it in 3 years.
I mean, what about? Again, I don't want to bring up another subject, but we just acquired a tract of land. I don't know if it's suitable for fields for the town. I don't know. I don't know if that's a consideration over there, unless we want to do something else. Again, I was after a
Josh,
treatment plant, but
Were there plans that were drawn up for the high school field?
So, from a discussion that I was a part of at the GAA a few months back, they revisited a plan. I think that was done a few years ago. I think they needed to revisit that plan to see if it was still viable under conditions today. I think they asked for some money and were denied that. So that's a plan. I think. I mean, they had a plan for a track. I think originally they had a plan for another turf field up there, and then a couple of multi-use grass fields, which would certainly alleviate the pressure on soccer for our needs. So I think that's a little stalled. I know that also there was some hesitation in plowing forward with that because of some obligations that the GAA already has with the returfing of the turf field. So there's already some financial commitments there, but we're certainly. And I speak for soccer, GAA will certainly, craft some official position, but we certainly would be open to that as a solution, especially pursuing an existing plan that's already there.
yeah, I think we have to think strategic. I think we have to think long to short term. Yes, in the next couple of years we may need those fields, but what's the long term goal? Let's get off those fields and find an alternative. I know it's going to cost more money. I hate to say that, but it's just the way of the world. I mean, if we're using a field that's not intended for those purposes, we should be off those fields and just move forward.
I will say though, anything that we can do in the interim while we're phasing out of West Street, I would be in favor of, you know, even filling holes, because we are using it, and there have been some injuries, you know, significant or not, but, you know, there is a danger there. So I wouldn't abandon the idea of filling in and maybe top dressing some areas to fix just the current conditions,
Yep.
but it's certainly not a long-term solution. I think that there's, I'm more in the thinking of with Dave, where we need to look at other options.
Yeah, maybe it's half that, Jim. Maybe it's a $5,000 load.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, that's fine.
Just,
Like I
you know.
said, I think I might be too far out on 10, you might be too far in on 3. Because I think the only solution in 3 to 5 is gonna be the top field at the high school. And we'd have to get moving on it right away, you know, it's a lot of work. And then if you looked at Martel Way down that way, we got conservation issues down there. And I don't know if that's the only other piece of land that I know in town. And that would be 5 to 7 years, even with a good conservation, you know. There's a lot, that area out there has gotten beavers, and now there's a lot, now it's a pond. There used to be, that whole topography has changed quite a bit. So I think, right now, if you want a 3 to 5 year plan, I think personally, the only choice is the top fields in the high school.
National Ave. You brought up National
Oh, yeah.
Ave. It's the biggest piece of flat land owned by the town right now, and I know it's still being discussed. And early on, I mentioned don't sell it too quick. Be
Right.
strategic.
Yeah.
Think what you want to use it for.
Right, I
It's
think
got a
that's
lot
a
of
whole,
uses.
a whole nother discussion, but, I mean, I'm trying to solve the issues of the water and sewage treatment out of the downtown area, because I think if we solve that, that'll revitalize the whole downtown area, bring additional revenue, you know, mixed use, and that's a whole another can of worms. So I'd hate to give that up, but if that's the will and pleasure of the town, you know, I just think we have to take more strategic rather than just Band-Aids, that's all.
Steve?
Things can work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with David. So, what does it take to get the upper fields in a suitable?
I think Jim can speak.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Gail, so the original plan was for a turf field up there. I had a conversation on how much it would cost to cap that top surface. You got a 4-foot difference between field 1 and field 2. So if you took out the center section, made that a massive one field with a grass, with a track with a grass infield, it'd be about $1 million. That doesn't include the road going up, doesn't include the parking for the place. So I think it'd be about a $2 to $2.5 million project to basically make that whole one big piece with and you'd have a grass field with the track. And I think that's a viable.
Which a lot of people have asked for, quite frankly,
Yeah.
in this town. I mean,
Sure.
we always get, is there a track in town?
Now, if you wanted more, then you know, but I think that's what you're gonna get, and I think there's plenty of room to do that up there. And I'm personally in favor for additional study on that as well. I think a new recreational facility can possibly get CPC money. I'm not 100% sure, but the deadline's December 1st, so if you don't put in the suggestion, you're not gonna be talking about it this year.
Yeah.
So someone should be entering a CPC suggestion if they want the CPC to talk about it, of doing a study and having the CPC pay for it.
Wait, do we do it?
I think it ended.
Huh? No, December 1st.
Very end.
What is that? Monday?
That's
Friday.
Friday.
Anyone can
We
put a
can't put it there?
suggestion.
I don't know what it involves. I mean,
It's a one-page thing, you put your name, what you
Placeholder.
suggest, it's a placeholder.
Yeah.
You can expand upon it later. I've got 2 more to put in myself, so it's,
How are we looking at doing that, Mike? Because, yeah, I think it's, if it's our first step,
I
I think it's,
thought the school put something like that forward. last
no, they were
year.
looking for stands, money, and the stands was not an approved, when
Okay.
they came to they were looking for something that they can't ask for CPC money for stands, it's just not allowed.
Yeah.
But a new if the CPC deems that as a new recreational facility, the first decision they'll make is it allowed to use CPC money? And the second one, which will be just as tough, is do they want to do it? I mean, so it would take, you know, you just can't leave it there thinking it's gonna go through, that doesn't always work.
okay.
That property's under the control and care of the school committee.
Mhm.
They'd have to put the request in.
Oh, okay. That's true. Okay.
Yeah, one last comment. You know, this group that we have here, what I agree with Joe, this is what the town needs. We need to meet more often. all the boards to discuss this, because this is where everything comes out on the table exactly who's been talking to who and what's the solutions, and I think that that's the only way to move things forward. If we work in our own little groups, it could be a 10 or 15-year plan to get some of these things done. So I'd like to thank you all for coming today. I know it's late and it's on your own time, but I do appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike.
I'm just curious, why does soccer have 2 seasons?
I don't know, that goes back way before me. We just follow.
Because they've always done it.
They've always done it, yeah. Well, I mean, Essex County, the way that, not to get too involved, but Essex County kind of places all of our teams in the fall. There's no playoffs in the fall. What they do over the winter is reshuffle so it's more competitive, and then you have playoffs moving forward from there. So it's almost like fall is like a practice season, and then spring is the real season where they have Essex County playoffs, which then would go to the states and regionals, nationals, blah, blah, blah. So they try to figure things out with the two. I don't know if that was the initial reason why they did it, but that's kind of how it's evolved.
And Topsail Fair, they have winter season too, so don't,
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say.
don't think that this
they have
doesn't just
indoor
go on
season.
and on.
Well,
And lacrosse during the winter too. So, Doug, you have any,
I have nothing to say other than the land needs to be protected, and it is a water source, and kids need someplace to play. Now, how long have they been playing down there?
Since the
Longer
70s.
than I've been in town.
Since the 70s. It was a sand and gravel pit. I used to shoot a 22 there as a kid, so.
I was already gonna say,
lead free
Yeah,
shot.
it was, no, There wasn't any turtles there either at the time. Those nice turtles weren't there then.
You just never.
Yes, sir.
belong.
Yes, George Kibisky, with the Park River Clean Water.
Hi,
And
George.
I'd just like to point out, as far as timeline when doing work, permissions, DEP does have jurisdiction over Zone 1. So whatever section of the field within Zone 1, that they would need permission to do that. I know the Concom's doing their best effort to figure out a timeline, but actually Visa has authority, Natural Heritage has authority, so they have to get a Visa permit. And the other thing I'd like to go back to is I went to a DEP meeting last week with the Georgetown Water General Manager. It was for the water needs forecasting, and this is to get the permit for the next 20 years. And they determined that any community that has more than 25% negative recharge, they have to do offsets and get special conditions. Georgetown is at minus 72% recharge in the area of our well fields. Meaning the water that gets pumped out doesn't go, only 28% goes back. So that's why we should be more concerned about the recharge capability of those fields. And we have to be careful in changing soils that would retard recharge. So I just want to emphasize that again, because the more water we draw down, the more iron and manganese we draw into our treatment system, and the more the water treatment plant has to work to get those contaminants out, and it affects our aesthetic quality of our water and our and the smell, and so these are the things we should be concerned about. I know, we are involved with the turtles, but we're mostly concerned about our water supply and water quality and how it affects the river and all that. So that should be the main focus down in that area.
Yep.
We pump about $8,000 worth of water now. We could probably pump 4,000 with a little bit of loam, and we put 4,000. Most of it, some of it evaporates. So I agree with him. There is a recharge if it was a rainstorm, but I think that we're one of the biggest water users in this town, the Park and Rec, and we should manage it better. But it's hard to. Those fields get used a lot, and I'd like to take $8,000 worth of money and drop it down to 4 and use half as much water.
Sure.
And that might be an option. Like I said, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. Hit the sweet spot a little bit. Not go crazy on those loam, but at least get it so it can retain some moisture.
So the question is, if we go the route of just putting some loam down, okay, as we go through a process, to figure out a long-term plan, does this loam also have to, once again, be tested by the water department?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we at least start that process, gentlemen, so that we can figure out if we actually have a viable, determination, all right, and a positive determination to even put that down.
Right.
Okay.
This is a good time of year because people have loam on site. No one's asking for loam right now. So we're having them put 50 yards aside and have it tested at the university at Amherst. That they might do it now. They don't do it in the middle of the season when everybody's screaming for loam.
Yep.
So it might be a good time to get them.
All right, so if you guys can work on that and have someone, let us know, I certainly, would be up for that because, there's also a concern, if everything tests, from your standpoint, we got to protect these kids on the fields. We can't have another season like we did this year.
I appreciate some direction just generally from you as far as my meeting with the other Park and Rec members. I'm going to have some that are going to agree. Like I said, we have $11,000 to be used down there, and you have as much say as anybody else as what that should be used for, because it's CPC money.
Mhm.
So the CPC can give that money to anybody they want, I think. I think the way the article was written.
Okay.
So,
But-
I'm just saying, I'm going to go to that meeting, and some people aren't going to be watching this meeting.
Yep.
On my committee, so.
Well, I think we need an immediate fix. I mean, short-term fix, but the long-term goal,
Oh, yeah.
again, is and the situation, or the suggestion I would make is, maybe we need to have a conversation with the school committee. Involve the school committee in on this discussion also. Maybe the next time we get together, let's get them in and
Yeah,
say,
we
look,
could do that.
we know that those fields are under your control at the high school. However, we need a long-term plan here, to take West Street offline, period.
I think I've talked to Carol, I think generally should be in favor. I also think Rob Hoover should be involved because he's also would be in favor in doing something up there. Being on the planning board, I don't think there's a huge planning board issue, but because they're not changing the use up there. It's fields and it'll still be fields and it's school property, but he's been a proponent as well as trying to maximize that use because he realizes we get off West Street a little bit as well.
There could be some state and federal money we could go after too. I don't know, I'm just, thinking.
Well, and I think even up top, I don't see why they would have an issue because I've talked to people who use those fields even up there, and girls softball hates those fields with a passion because the drainage is terrible. Nothing seems to be growing well up there, and blah blah blah. We can go on and on. So I don't see why they would have an issue with at least exploring this.
Now the last point is, do I design East Main Street to be a pony field, so girls softball could run up the top field and they can get to East Main Street if they wanted to have practices eventually on that field.
Yeah, I mean
It's not that far. It's not that far from the top field of the high school to the East Main Street facility through.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, Jim, that we discussed before you got here was trying to get some more fields online, and I think if you look at the bigger usage for everybody, and that is working with Josh to get those fields online by the spring, for mostly the soccer, and that can be used for lacrosse too.
Yeah.
So if you take a pool of kids. Right, I mean, you're talking about one area of children, and I appreciate softball. I'm not saying that, but when you talk about all the soccer, which is girls and boys, and all the lacrosse, which is the same, I think those fields can be utilized in that way a little bit more. And we've talked to Josh a little bit, and based on your feedback in the last meeting, is that those will be online, right, in the spring, right? So, and then you guys certainly have to start talking about schedules, meaning Josh and Jim, about how we're going to proceed with those fields as well.
We'll certainly want to know so we can offer that to our coaches so they can already start to remove themselves from West Street if they want as practice. I don't think we'd ever use it as something for Essex County, which we would have to let them know probably by January if that was a field that we were going to officially use, but I see that more as a practice facility for us. But I certainly will talk with Jim about that progress and how we can best use that and get that online for our kids.
And I'm sure lacrosse is going to want
and
to
lacrosse
talk,
is going to be the same way
as well.
Yeah. Joe, I was wondering if do you see this initiative being continued through the Board of Selectmen, or is there a possible other committee that could be created that would have a representative from all the stakeholders that would keep this conversation and the communication moving forward, or do you see it I'll say the word piecemeal, but, I see a few people here tonight and a few people last time, and, that I think just speaks to the, kind of the slowness of the communication that has been there. I wonder if there's an opportunity for another kind of committee that could have at least one representative from all the stakeholders there to keep
I think
things
that's
moving.
a great idea. I think that's the way it would have to go.
I know
if we
GAA
wanted
and
to-
soccer would be a part of that, would like to be a part of that.
I think the synthetic turf committee worked really well with different representation of different groups. It helped with the speed of the line.
Yeah.
People were updated. So when things came in front of them, they knew, had backgrounds on it.
Yeah, I think ideally, that's what I'd like to see. But as stated, I think our first, meeting has to be with the school committee and kind of talk to them about, if they agree with us and if they'd be on board, with that, because, as Jim's mentioned, there's not a whole hell of a lot of, different choices, that we have. So, yeah, Gary.
That's where I don't put everything on that one area. I think that this committee, needs to pursue and think. I can think of several areas of town I'd rather not say right now. And then as, as Steve mentioned, we've got National Ave. So I think looking at a long term, let's not just sit here tonight and say, let's think the top of the school fields is the best area.
Sure.
Because you certainly don't have the best access up there. And if you access from a different direction, you're gonna bother people. I'll use proper words tonight. I know in the past GAA was looking at tracks. I don't know if there's perhaps something that they may not be pursuing that anymore, but they may have been tracks that they looked at in the past that we may want to take another look at. So I think that's some of the starts that perhaps nothing wrong with getting together with the school committee, but I just don't want to say, yeah, let's jump on this because it's there.
No, sure.
I
agree.
I do think any major park's gonna have to go through the planning board because of the new laws in town. We sent certified letters to every person with over 10 acres a number of years ago, and we went through every lot and looked at them. Problem with fields, the grade has to be perfect. It has to be level. You can't have a 3-degree grade thinking you're gonna. There's a lot of work in fields, and you got no wetlands issues up there. You have access already there. You think it's not a great spot, but it really
No, I'm not
is.
saying
Permitting doesn't have to be
not.
done. There's no permitting required. If you want to do a 3 or 5 year plan, there's no way you're going to get anything through this town. With the going in front of the planning board if you go there for 6 or 7 months, and hit the Conservation Commission, it's going to be a tough sell in any other spot.
I just also think
No, I
of
agree.
how congested it can be there at times.
You're right.
Okay.
What about handicap
I mean-
access? There's a whole bunch of
Oh, you're going to have
considerations.
parking, right? Yeah.
I mean,
Luckily-
we go to a town meeting, and sometimes when you first get there, you can't even get parking. I'm like, why can't they schedule these games on a different time,
Right.
other than, trying to have a town meeting? I mean, we wonder why people don't come, and it could be because they drive in, they say, where am I gonna park sometimes?
Right
So-
behind the music building, there's a whole forest there that will have to be parking.
I'd support Gary's position that,
Yeah.
let's not just
I'll
go
give you the
with
list.
blinders here. Let's look at all viable options and let them, based on the merit of each, maybe that field at top high school is gonna come out on top. I don't know.
Yeah,
Rose will send you a list. Any acre over 10 acres if it doesn't have a house on it. It's in their system. It'll be half the size of it was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, it wasn't that big. So do it. I agree. Double check it. It's a great.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the very start, so we can explore, anything and everything.
Yeah.
But,
I think our
yeah.
next step is school committee. That's the only
Yeah.
other committee we haven't talked to. And then formulate some type of overall, synthetic turf committee again. And charge them with looking at all viable options. And keep it to a 3 to 5 year plan to vacate and replace the West Street fields.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
They'll go do it.
Now go do it.
I still think we could make some use of West Street fields in the future.
I
Again, I just throw
I
that
don't
out.
see why
as-
we wouldn't, but,
Turtle observation area, I guess.
I just
Well, it's an
want
open space. I mean, people are walking their dogs down there. I do see some
Yeah,
things
yeah, be
every
careful of that.
once in a while.
Turtles and dogs poop.
No.
We don't want to get too many turtles there either.
Well, from our perspective, we're not saying you can't walk on it or do anything. We just like to
Yeah.
minimize some of the, the excess uses, as you will.
Doug, you okay?
Does, George, does NISA control all that land down there, or just that touches upon the
There's a
conservation?
map called Priority Habitat Map, and it's delineated, and it includes pretty much all water department and conservation land, Lufkin's Brook, all that area down there.
That's what I was wondering. Because I know Steve said that not all the land there comes under any jurisdiction of conservation.
The local conservation commission.
Right.
And the hierarchy.
Or the state
well,
levels.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all.
Okay.
I just wanted to make that clear.
All right.
And we gotta watch out, we gotta look at how we're spending money, because money only comes out of the taxpayers' pockets, unless we get lots of grants.
Yep, sure. So listen, as a takeaway, first and foremost, Steve said, thank you so much for everybody, coming out tonight. Really, hope you thought the conversation, was worthwhile. Again, as a takeaway, Jim, if you could work with Steve, on that loan and see if that would work, I think that is a good short-term solution to alleviate the concerns with the kids. Okay, and then further, your other takeaway is to work with the GAA just to once that field is up and running, do it early so that they can kind of figure out, how we can utilize that field and maybe again take some of the kids off of West Street, at the same time, which I know might sound counterproductive, but it really isn't, because West Street gets so much use that maybe the fields will be in better use for a longer period of time as we're filling in all those, all those holes. Maybe they'll last a little longer.
Yeah, I tell you, put the CPC suggestion in somebody, because the CPC has never, after it's closed, they've never gone back. They have a clause in there for emergency, but
Yeah.
it'd be really easy just to throw in a 2-line statement. Suggestion is to do a study on the top field of the high school.
Yeah, I think that's a viable suggestion.
What do you
Yes.
spend the money though?
Yeah.
Like Mike's usual expression is check to see if it's been done before. I've said probably 5 selectmen meetings that have said very similar things before we
Mhm.
start throwing money at it. See what's been done. There's already been an engineering study of the top fields. I just would recommend digging into the file cabinet, because we've done our government study 6 times.
I think
Sure.
he's right, and I think a lot of it would come from that original study, but then that was a synthetic turf. I think the idea is we can't pay for synthetic turf with CPC, so I mean, it'd be about 80% of that study, but things would change now that we have a synthetic turf field in the bottom, right? And
Okay.
So Jim, you were saying there was a synthetic engineering study on the upper field?
yes,
Yeah.
by Holly, by
Gale.
Number of
by
years.
Gale Associates and she was on the GAA. I forget her name. So, Heather Hartford did it about 15 years ago. I don't think and that's so. But it shows parking. It shows the field layout. It shows other things.
Enough concepts, have the discussion
It was a
before we go spend 10 grand.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
reproducing.
We would probably request, everybody, Harry remembers that, would request that as part of when you look at how much additional they would need. This is what you had 15 years ago. This is what's
Just made it a
changed.
matter of an update.
Yeah,
A lot cheaper.
right, so, no, we wouldn't waste the money. We'd definitely use that on them, if they were chosen.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Could I make sure that we're also involved in any conversations about modifications that are made to the West Street fields, just so we can kind of be in the loop and make sure that we're protecting the things that we're supposed to be protecting too?
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank
Again, communication. That's we gotta keep these lines open, and if anybody needs anybody's phone number, you got them now, all right? Because that's how we're gonna do things right here. So, Doug.
Yeah, just one other question, because it hasn't been mentioned, but does the Truly School field get used for anything other than baseball?
I think it's for soccer, I think
Has it been
lacrosse, I
soccer?
see lots of school groups using it.
Field
Yeah, I
hockey,
don't know
I don't know if they do field hockey still?
Field hockey.
Yeah, there's some soccer nets there, but we don't know who's using those. I don't know if the high school has moved over there for practices or something like that. It's certainly a great field, and we used to run our kindergarten clinic there on Saturday mornings. Plenty of space. If, we could put a field in there. We just never pursued it because I think there is a logjam of other sports that are using that. So we just used what we've had, but it's a viable option as well.
Phil lets somebody else on the outfield?
Huh?
I said Phil allows other
Yeah,
people on the
maybe.
outfield?
Who knows?
Really? Shocking. Okay. Anybody else? Well, again, folks, thank you so much for joining tonight. We really appreciate the time, and effort coming out. Jim, thank you to you, because I know it's your second time here. So thank you for taking the time as well. Josh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
About,
Coordinated.
about
Thank
just
you.
updates there, you know, when you think it'll be online.
I gotta get in front of the plan.
All right, Chief, you're here tonight. Talk about, let's see, ambulance and master box.
Yeah.
How you doing, Chief?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
Good evening. Thank you. Before we get into that, there's a couple of things I'd like to, kind of like, good welfare. Back at the end of the summer, Mrs. Pearson at 112 Pond Street in town made a $1,000 donation to the fire department. I'd like to say thank you to her. And also, I received a $350 donation from the Georgetown High School class of 1977 had a reunion over the summer, and they made a donation. I'd also like to thank them as well. So what we're going to be using the money for is one of our thermal imaging cameras, one for Engine 5, which was 12 years old. It's seen its better days, so we're going to use part of that money to replace it. It's a little over about a $4,000 purchase. So with the trade-in value for the camera, with the donation, so it's going to cover some of the costs of that. So, and I want to say thank you very much to Mrs. Pearson and the class of 1977 from Georgetown High for their generous donations.
Yes, thank you.
Chief, do we usually send thank yous?
Yes,
from
I
the town or
always,
from
yeah,
you?
I
From
send
you,
out,
okay.
yes, absolutely, yeah. The other thing is I had received an email from Paul Sadowski from Two Tall Tree Way last Wednesday, and his family is adopting the hydrant at the top of Tall Tree and Jewett Street to make sure it's clear of snow. And I want to thank them for that. Also, he in an email he relayed to me that other neighbors will clear the two hydrants on Tall Tree Way as well. And I'd like to thank him for organizing that, and also encourage the residents to adopt a hydrant in their area during the winter months. Obviously, when we get snow, we'll be out there, but it takes time. You know, we usually do the main drags first and work our way in, because the largest main size water supply is on the main drags.
Sure.
So we work from the outside in. That's that. And this morning, I had officially received the money from the the IT grant through the state. Finally showed up. So we're moving forward with that project. And next in January, we're going to be meeting with IMC to open up the records management, and then we have training scheduled for different components throughout the coming months in February and also in March. We're going to be doing some more training and data conversion. Our goal live date is targeted for Monday, April 2nd. So they usually like to do it at the beginning of the month on a Monday, and they'll be here all week to help us, to assist us getting us off the ground. So that's moving forward. So I'm happy to report that. And I got the email from the treasurer's office this morning that the funds have been transferred in. So that was. I had called down there a couple of times. We were having some issues with getting the transfers. Some of the communities didn't get their funds, and we were one of them. So between emails and telephone calls, I was kind of hesitant to move really forward quick. Didn't want the bills to come in and not have the money, to pay the bills. So that's why. But we're moving forward. We're up and running on that. I brought copies of it for the next two things, so that way they were all be able to read off the sheet. So, all right. Oh.
Thank you.
Let's start with the top sheet. There. Thanks, Joe. You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, here you go. For the top document is looking for support from the board to increase our ambulance fees. Based on the recommendation that goes back to the study and the review of the business plan back to 2012, they recommended that we look at the rates every 6 months and, you know, increase them accordingly. We basically felt that was kind of a little too much, so we look at the rates once a year. We contact our billing agent, Comstar, to give us the rate fees for the top 10. They won't give us what communities are charging what, but they'll give us the rates, and we try to hit the middle of the road. So, so basically, our rate increases would put us right on the BLS side would be 3 out of 9 and 4 out of 10. So we try to on the ALS intercept side. It also reflects the increase from the BLS emergency rate, the ALS emergency rate, mileage rate, and then it goes to the BLS Medicare and also the ALS Medicare, and it also shows the percentage increases on those two rates as well. Yes, sir.
I have a question, may I?
Yes, sir.
I had read with this legislation, either pending or has it already, I don't know if it's already been voted on, that the move was to cap ambulance fees and
Yep.
prevent, you know, local municipalities from
Right.
free, let's say, you know, just
Yeah,
establishing
right.
their own. Do you know what that is?
No, I know the FCAM has been working with the legislature because, like every other communities that run fire-based EMS, it provides staffing, and a lot of this also is the funding to keep it sustainable. So it includes the staffing and the equipment and the trucks as well. From what I understand, I don't believe it's there yet, a final decision. I do know that with Comstar, they work within those rates. They don't charge exorbitant. You know, they're working within those numbers, not to, you know, increase the rates drastically.
I was just wondering
Yep.
with that legislation pending, how, let's just say our legislative body decided to pass that. What would the impact be?
Well, I think that would be reflected, you know, going forward to us. And we'd have to abide by those within the confines of that cap.
Because I know that there was a move to have people send letters to the legislators
Yeah.
asking that the municipalities be left alone, be able to establish their own rates. Has the fire departments participated in anything like that? Talk to like Lenny or Bruce Tarr?
Well, I know the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts, FCAM, has been working with the legislature through our agent, you know, our state agent that works up there.
Okay, great. If you ever come get me, just tie me to the roof.
So I had a quick question, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
So, Chief, these rates are charged. Make this clear that it's not the individual person that's
No.
paying for these rates.
No, it's the
It's
insurance.
based on an insurance claim.
Yes, sir.
And 70% of 100% of our claims that go to Medicare are capped at their own number
Yes.
anyway.
Yes.
So, on a percentage basis, how many insurance companies are really paying these rates? You know, if you looked at our total take, meaning every single run that we do, a good portion of them, I got to believe, is on the Medicare piece
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So we're
I
not.
don't
really-
I don't have those numbers in front of me,
Right.
but if you look at the law of averages, it's probably more so on the Medicare rates than it is on the rates and the emergency rates.
Right.
So,
So for a private insurance, we potentially make $1,319, but on a Medicare run, same run, same, depending upon what the person has, it's only $374.
Yeah, yeah, depending what Medicare pays.
Yep. So I don't think we're hurting anybody by, moving these rates up. To Doug's point, we may see a cap. And hopefully the municipalities will be kept out of it, but maybe more for the private runs, because those numbers are, some of those private runs can be really, really expensive.
Yeah.
Does this require a vote of the selectmen, or is this something?
Yes,
that the
this
agency
is,
can do?
I know last year when I presented, you folks did vote on it, asking for your support and approval to move forward with this, so we can contact. And it would contact ComStar, and the rate increase would be effective January 1.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we move the rates for BLS emergency rate from $13.19.12 to $14.01.41, ALS emergency rate from $2.014.02 to $2.107.76, the mileage rate from $35 to $38. And do we have to do anything on the BLS and ALS for Medicare? No, right? Because those are flat
Yeah,
rates.
those are flat rates.
We don't have any say over that. So that would be my my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Yes, just, if I may.
Yes.
Well, what is the 275% on the Medicare? I mean, if a person has additional insurance, do you ask that insurance for?
That's all put in the PCR, the patient care report that goes to ComStar.
Oh, well,
That
I mean,
information.
you,
Maybe I'm misunderstanding your
okay, you
question.
got a Medicare rate of
Yep.
373.71
Mhm.
plus the 275. Now
Right,
you're saying Medicare pays that.
right.
If the person has additional insurance, what you're saying is
Yeah, they would
you
get-
bill the
yeah,
additional
yeah.
insurance.
Yes, sir.
So do you not need that increase also, I guess is what I'm saying.
Which would be increased to, if you use the BLS emergency rate, if you,
So you're
plus
using
the two,
the
right,
one up top
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make up the
right.
difference. Oh,
But if they
okay.
don't, but all if they have is Medicare, they're getting charged the
Yes.
370,
Yes,
371.
okay.
As long as we move the master rate up, we're good on
Okay,
both of those.
then that rate will go with it. That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you. The next thing, and the last thing that I have is the master box fees. We have 43 master boxes, 43 businesses that have the master box system, which is their fire alarm that notifies us when they have a fire alarm activation. It comes into the station direct. I guess back in, and it was either town meeting 07 or 08, a revolving account was established for the municipal fire alarm master box fees. And the fee was set at $250. That goes back almost 10 years. Our system's getting older. It's still very reliable, but when it breaks down, we have to fix it. And based on our recommendation from Comai Electric, who handles our master box system, he made a recommendation that we increase our fees from $250 a year, one-time fee, to $300. At $250 a year, it works out to 68 cents a day. Going to $300 a year, it cost 82 cents a day for monitoring the fire alarm system. Right now, the $250 brings in a little over $10,000, $10,750. By increasing it to $300, it would bring in yearly $12,900. It would be an increase of a little over $2,000, $2,150. We have an issue with Circuit 4 that's ongoing that we're addressing. One of the other things he recommended is we have a one-time connection fee for a new master box system, and we charge $200. His rate coming out is $213 to do that, so we're kind of losing money on that. The account is still, healthy, sustainable right now. We did do kind of like a survey of municipalities, and you'll see on page 2, it ranges from $150 to $900. When we looked at the community, and some of the communities obviously aren't in Essex County, when we started to look at Essex County, the going rate on the average was almost $300. So what I'm asking the board tonight for support is to be able to raise the master box fees from $250 a year to $300 a year.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Chief, with all due respect, looking at your list,
Sure.
doesn't really justify going to 300, to be
Okay.
honest. I mean, you know, this is an ongoing fee annually for
Yeah,
each
it's
one of the
once a
businesses.
year, yeah.
I mean, you know, that's a 20% increase. I mean, would you look to go maybe to, you know, just by $25 to $275? As far as the connection fee goes, I can see your point. We're paying $213.
Okay.
So we should at least recover our cost on that.
Yep.
We also sent in a fireman at that point too, a detail on that?
No,
Or
this
is
was done by the electrician.
Just by
It-
electric?
What this does is, this is like, it's a monitoring. Because when the master box comes in, it goes directly from the business to the.
Well, I understand that was the
dispatch.
connection fee though, the one-time.
The one-time fee is putting the box on the building
Can we
and,
send out a fireman on that? No, an inspector? Is it needed
well,
to be inspected?
we'll send them out to inspect to make sure it was done.
So that 213 plus that, or is that
No, that's just
213?
213 total. That's for
Okay.
the electrician coming out.
Okay. And the inspection by one of our guys?
Yes.
Okay. Because, I mean, to me, I would be more comfortable just maybe moving it up to 275 and, you know, the 250 I can see for the connection fee, one-time fee, but, I mean, the recurring cost on businesses is just, you know, just being nickel and dimed everywhere, and, again, as long as we're covering our cost, I wouldn't want to see us go up, you know, by $50. That's a pretty hefty increase in one spot, so. And looking at the surrounding communities, like Newburyport's at 300, you know, Haverhill 250, you know, Salem's 200, you know, Danvers 250. It would be on the high side. I would ask, you know, maybe move to 275
Okay.
on that.
Fair enough.
Just my 2 cents, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Just
Sure, Gary.
what type of businesses typically are hooked in, I guess would be my question. I mean, as to what, so we're talking the same fee to some probably small
Yeah,
businesses.
everybody pays the
versus-
same fee, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so-
like if, as an example, if you look at Crosby's,
Tied in.
the plaza, right,
Yeah.
that's tied in, they pay the same fee as a smaller venue, like the cabinet shop on Moulton Street, Curtis Cabinets.
Mhm.
So it just, we don't look at the size of the building because the system's
Yeah,
in there.
If you've got a
Right.
system, it's
Sure.
tied in. I
Right.
mean, this typically go with is just smoke, or sometimes it's both smoke and
Smoke,
sprinkler?
heat, sprinkler, yeah, it's all
Yeah,
tied
so-
into the master
Yeah,
box. yes.
okay. I can agree with you, David, somewhat, I really do, but this is one of them areas where you've gotten, you can't remember when the last time this thing was raised.
To my knowledge, it's never been raised.
And this is the thing that we go through, and sometimes we don't do yearly increases, that's what I've said, and then you do, you come in and you look at this big raise.
Right.
But I mean, we've got to, in a way, trying to at least start with a yearly, your point is well taken, it is, but, and I feel the same way, to never have been given a raise and now be looking to give that type of percentage is tough. But at some point, you gotta start looking at a yearly thing, even if it is only a couple of bucks. A couple of bucks over 10 years adds
Mhm.
up. So it may be a thing where yearly, we just gotta continue to increase it a small amount.
I mean, my concern is, you know, the system is older than it was 10 years ago, so my concern is we have that catastrophe, major breakdown, and then the money that's in there just gets eaten up, and then next thing you know is we're kind of in, you know, in the red on it, but we still gonna maintain the system, and if you went to a private monitoring company, you're gonna pay a lot more, you know, plus the infrastructure cost for the town to incur on top of the business owner.
And so, right now, you are sustaining, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yep.
Okay, you're sustaining with what
Yep.
you take in, you're
Yep.
sustaining. Now, do you know in the future, any plans to upgrade any of this? I know, like, you know, sometimes people are talking now, a lot of cameras, I don't know that there's much that goes to the police department, but I mean, is that all on the same
Well,
lines and everything, or
we-
is that a different
My
system?
my only, the one thing I've said to Steve Cormier, who knows the system very well, is that a lot of the components of the system are still at the Middle Street in the basement of the old station. And at some point, that stuff's gonna have to be moved. You know, and I said to him, I says, you're not gonna retire until we address this, because that is my concern. And it's now a private residence, the old fire station. So, you know, all kidding aside, that is a concern of mine. I'm at the old thing saying is, if it's not broke, right, if it's not broke, don't fix it. This is a very good system there in theory-wise. You know, where I came from, we had a radio box system, and we had all kinds of problems with pole losses because of the topography of the town that I came from. So the master box system, it goes from the business right to the station, you know, and it comes in off the ticker. We read the ticker and we know where we're going. If we did away with the system and businesses had to contract their own monitoring company, now you're putting a third party in, you know, playing the connect the dot game to finally get it to the dispatcher. So as far as that goes. So that's kind of, you know, what we're looking at here. And I'd rather be proactive and try to stay ahead of this curve than have to come in front of, whether it be coming in front of the board or, you know, the financial committee and saying, you know, we need X amount of dollars to maintain or fix our system.
Steve?
What's the policy or the rate structure for false alarms?
We don't have one. We don't really normally have Steve.
Do other towns have that?
Not that I'm aware of, but I could research that.
I'm just wondering if we're comparing apples to apples. Like, if you're a business and you have 10 false alarms a year,
Yeah.
is you know, are there additional fees that get added on?
We
in
have
other
never.
towns than here.
That I don't know,
Yeah.
but I know we have, as long as I've been here, sent bills out for false alarms, because I don't think we've really had any really false alarms. Usually when the master box comes in, it's either, you know, a system malfunction or the burnt food. We had a master box at Metaltronics last week in the middle of the night. Got there and the warehouse was full of smoke. They had a compressor erupt, overheat, cause a smoke condition in the base, and not in the basement, but in the warehouse area. So we haven't really had, you know, the you know, malicious false alarms since I've been here.
Maybe you're thinking of, as what you said, a malfunction as a false
Yeah,
alarm.
yeah, I'm not,
That
yeah,
might
I'm
be
not
the
talking
way that you're-
maliciously.
you're-
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
like,
malfunctions?
I'm
No.
talking about if, you know, I mean, there are
I'm
towns.
familiar with that.
Yeah.
There are towns, you know, residential, right?
Yep.
You get like 3 false alarms and then you get hit with the fee.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that if we're going to 300 and then we take a look at this here,
Yeah.
do these other towns institute that type of fee structure? If they do, then the 300 is still a bargain.
Yeah. No, I'm not aware of that. I don't believe these are the master box fees, not, and I don't think there's any additional fees tied into it for malicious fire alarms, system malfunctions.
I'd be more in line with both Gary and David, like raise to 275 and then incrementally add a little bit
Yep.
every year.
I mean, eventually the goal would be to get to $1 a day, you know, for a monitoring fee. That's the goal, but to do that, you know, even after, you know, call it for the sake of argument, 10 years to turn around and increase the rate to 365 that's well over $100. And I didn't feel comfortable coming in front of you folks tonight and presenting a plan like that. But the goal would be to incrementally increase and get to that point down the road.
Mr. Chairman, one other comment. I would encourage you, Chief, to take a look at the balance in that account.
Yep.
And maybe start accounting for depreciation of the system.
Mm-hmm.
To say, look, if we were gonna replace this system, it's gonna cost us X amount of dollars. And have a target number each year where you're holding some of that money aside.
Yep.
To say, all right, in 5 years or 6 years, we'll have, just
Right.
pick a number, $8,000 in order to replace X pieces of the system. So we should be accounting for depreciation on an annual basis within the fund, if you can.
Yep.
Rather than have to go to free cash and all that kind of stuff later.
Yeah,
If it's viable, I don't know if that's a viable option, but that's just a suggestion.
I can follow up with the town accountant on that, Mike.
It's kind of like what we do
tomorrow.
with the police,
Yep.
I mean, the ambulances, you know, we're always,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, kind of self-sustaining itself, the
Chief.
replacements.
By the looks of it, I mean, 300 would be in line with a couple of towns or whatever. If we increase it to 300, what would your thought be in terms of any other further increases anytime soon?
If we went to 300, I'd kind of let this ride for a few years, as long as the system we're maintaining. You know,
I mean, I can't get on board with going to 275 and then just have Chief come back in 1 year for $25. I mean, I just think we do it. You know, as a percentage, I agree. It seems like a lot, but for $50, you know, for us doing the monitoring, it's $50.
Would only be, would be the,
I mean, as a percentage, I get it, you know, but sometimes you don't look at percentage. You look at it's $50.
I mean, Mr. Chair, the other thing too is we could look at, you know, going to 75 this year with the approval of the board, the following year, raise it to 300 and put, that way there, I'm not coming back in front of you folks, you know, for you know, additional increase, and then cap it at 300 for now, and if I'm looking to go over 300, then I would have to come back and with your approval.
I mean, we do have a couple of towns here at 300, so it's not like we're not
and we're in line with the
some.
city.
Yeah.
We're in line with the city of Newburyport, which, we're a smaller town, I mean, would be the highest in the area, along with Newburyport.
But we also haven't increased in forever.
I understand, but I just, if I was a business owner, I would be.
Yeah, no, and that's why to Dave,
$50?
to your point,
Yeah, it's just the thought is, you know, you're going from
Just another
250 to
nickel and
300.
dime,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, again, we want to be friendly to business. Everybody has to have these.
yep.
You know, I mean, we want to encourage more business. I just don't like being the highest. That's
But I also think that, you know, that business that Chief just described, I think we were being pretty friendly with that business by rescuing their business from smoke inhalation, you know, or whatever.
So, yeah, it was
you
a
know.
smoke condition.
Well, that's why we're here.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's, but I get it, but there's also a cost to doing business. You know, it's, you know, for $50,
Again,
it's
if I
not.
may, does like every restaurant in town require this?
Yeah, they have all the master boxes.
Yeah, so
Yep.
what other type of businesses is it required at, I guess, with?
Yeah, commercial, you know, the plazas that have, you know, in town, the industry up on Jackman Street, Jewett, and all the town properties have the master box.
So a restaurant has to pay it themselves, so I guess that's where it could go from a small one to a, but in a place like a plaza, do you know if it's the owner or the tenants?
That would have to be an agreement between the,
Them, okay.
right, the
yeah,
business, but
yeah.
ultimately,
Do you
the,
have a box, I guess, generally, like one box at the plaza? Do you have
Yeah, it's just
Norm
one-
at each individual
there's
tenant?
one box at the plaza.
Okay.
And that agreement would be between.
Like a
the-
restaurant in the plaza would have to have their own?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we increase the municipal fire alarm fee, the annual fee structure from 250 to 300, and the connection fee from 200 to 250.
Okay, motion, do we have a second? Can I second?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll second it. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we increase the annual fee for a fire fee from $250 to $275, and the connection fee from $200 to $250.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
I'm gonna abstain. All right, so that passes, Chief.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
If I could just say, don't be afraid to come back.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No.
For $5 next
Okay.
year. I mean,
Yep.
it's,
No, we'll look at the fees again,
I
and, you know, we'll,
wanted to say something.
Yeah, sure.
Chief, I wanted to say that this program you have for lock boxes.
Yep.
And for senior citizens with their smoke CO alarms.
Yep.
It's a fantastic program. And that
Thank
was
you.
all written off for a grant?
Yeah, that was through the Senior Safe Grant. The Safe Grant is through Department of Fire Service through Massachusetts. We have the Safe Grant, which is for the students through the school system, and then we have the Senior Safe, which is for the older folks. And we can use those funds for fire prevention programs, or any type of safety programs. And the lockbox program has been, very successful. We do track the boxes, so, in the event the home is sold, then we retrieve the box. And just helping the folks that are living in town that don't have smoke detectors, especially on the seniors, living on a more of a fixed income in their golden years, to help them out to install smoke detectors to keep them safe. So
Well, that's good.
I will say the guys, they go out there, they do a great job. Donna Robbins, our safe coordinator, she manages the program, and when we get somebody that comes in or contacts us, we send that to Council of Aging, to Colleen, and Colleen will set up the appointments. But anytime she gets us the information, that comes to us, and then we'll go out there and set it up for
So
them.
are there income guidelines too?
No, the guidelines are the elderly guidelines when you're 60, and anyone who's disabled as well. It just, instead of us, in the event of an emergency and the house is locked up, it's easy to grab the key, open the door, than try to have to force entry, and then now we're causing.
Well, now, what kind of response have you had? Has it just been people that have called you, or do you sent letters or some type of communication to the senior population?
Yeah, we went through Colleen, and then we had a press release out, and which has been great, And once we instituted the program, we ran out of funds. Then we had to wait for the grant to be renewed through the Department of Fire Services, but we had a standing list. So once we get the funds, we ordered the boxes, and then we went back out and
Great
installed them.
program.
No, thank you. You guys do a great job. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Mr. Chairman, can I go back to some,
Okay.
business we discussed earlier, because I did get some correspondence while the meeting was going on, and Jeff Moore, who is ZBA,
Yep.
says, I have a CPC request all drafted for studying the high school field. Can submit it by Friday if needed. Carol Jacobs is on board. And they also said myself, Scott McDonald, and Carol will get it submitted, and we can go from there.
Wonderful.
So, sounds like we're on,
Sure.
should we just publicly give them the okay on that? Our support?
I certainly would give him my support.
Okay.
So,
As well.
Okay, I'll just let them know.
yes,
They're
absolutely.
probably watching anyway, but
Yep.
go ahead.
Jeff, thank you for watching and let us know. Appreciate that.
We can make that part of the record.
This should be part of the record that I got a text.
Okay. On the Selectmen's report, we're going to pass over the reorg letter for the SAAP. We know about that. Winter spring meetings, we're looking at January 8th, 22nd, into February on the 12th and 26th. March, the 12th and 26th as well. April, we have the 9th and the 23rd, and May, the 7th and 21st. Moving forward, winter parking ban. I'm just going to read this over for everybody who hasn't seen it. This is coming from Peter Durkee from the Highway Department. This is being sent as a reminder that as of December 1st, the town's winter parking ban will take effect. This will be in effect until April 1st of 2018. No parking on any street is allowed between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. No parking is allowed on any street during a declared snow emergency. This is always done when any impending storm is forecast to be 6 inches or more in depth. Any vehicle impending or blocking snow and ice control operations will be towed at the owner's expense. If you're parking overnight in the park and ride lot, please park all cars on the right side when entering from East Main Street during the snowstorms. This will allow the plows to clean the entire parking lot without having to maneuver around parked cars. I would respectfully request, as a courtesy to any residents that are not aware of this ban, that you announce this communication at your next regular scheduled meeting. Copies of this communication have been provided to the press and cable TV. Thank you in advance for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Peter Durkee. Any questions about the parking ban should be directed towards Peter at the Highway Department. So thank you, Peter, for forwarding that. So we're going to head to the town administrator's report. I've asked Mike to update us on a couple of different topics. One has come up tonight, but a couple of different topics just to update this board and get any questions answered that you might have. So, Mike.
Yeah, well, the National Ave site has been mentioned several times tonight, and as far as National Ave is concerned, we're moving forward with the state and applying for assistance in developing that request for information.
Good.
That's
Peter Milano's group?
Yeah.
Good.
That's due December 15th. John Cashel and I are going to make sure that gets in on time, as well as the site assessment study that they can do for us. And what's new, and this could be pretty exciting, although John's more aware of this than I am, but the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission has a Community Economic Development Strategy Committee. And we received an email from Karen Connard, who was at the meeting too, and she knows how important that site is to the town. And they have 20 regional, they call them PDAs, priority development areas. In their region, and the National Ave site has been chosen to be one of 8 that group is actually going to focus on now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Nice.
So they've recognized the importance of it and the not the priority, but the ability that it may develop into something.
Yep.
So those 3 things we now have going for the National Ave site.
Fantastic.
And we'll work on that through the winter and hopefully have something to show by springtime.
And by the way, if I could, Mike, we also have John working on a piece of land that we don't have, the active spike strip, if you want to call it. John is persisting on working on that issue, right, with Mike. So that is still in the works. It's going to be a slow process, but I think we're making some headway, right?
Yeah, the owners of the spike strip are actually in land court, and because it's a real mess. That spike strip is actually 2 separate pieces of land.
Yep.
And the owners are trying to get them straightened out. The problem was the town several years ago was involved in creating that mess by granting that spike strip actually. So a legal counsel is working with the other owners, and we may be able to resolve some form of access out of the whole deal.
Good, that's great.
Yeah,
Short of buying it from them.
Yeah, there are a couple of different options.
They'll
that we're-
gladly sell it to us.
Sure.
But we'll see about that.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that one. Then as far as the health insurance, I've been working, providing information to the Cook and Company consultant. Her name is Sue Shalou. She has been gathering information from the town and from Maya. I notified Maya that we've contracted with Cook and Company. They are looking forward to working with them. They have worked with them in the past in other communities. They have a Cook and Company has a very good reputation of knowing what they're doing and working well with the towns. I'll be having a discussion, whether it's face-to-face or on the telephone with her this week to get a game plan going forward. And she knows, we need to have something in hand probably around February to make sure, it gives us time to integrate it into the budget.
Mike, how many? I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry. How many plans is she looking to bring forward in terms of offers? Because we were trying to do this last year, we ran out of time. Certainly don't want to see that again. How many does she feel is ideal, along with Maya? I'm sure that's going to be bidding on this.
I haven't gotten into that level of discussion. That would be something I'd need to communicate to her in a face-to-face. She's just looking at what we have now.
Okay.
And then she'll apprise us of what's available and we're looking to reduce our costs.
Yeah.
And she'll make those type of recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay. David, sorry.
Yeah, to Joe's point, we just don't want it to seem like she's just a consultant to help us with Maya. We want to make sure that we're getting, and good luck, because from what I see, the increases are going to be 15, 16, 17%, at least in the private sector again. Not going to be a real easy year this year at all. So good luck. Hopefully we can get lucky, but again, I just want to make sure, like to Joe's point, we're shopping this around with everybody, not just Maya,
And this is, from what I am understanding, I'm getting a little bit of an education on this with Mike, but I don't think we can do this every single year. All right, right? Is that right, Mike? I mean, we generally do this every 2 to 3 years. Generally, we don't get a good reputation if we do this every single year.
Well, no, because I think if she can push our current carrier to, sharpen their pencil, I think this is an annual thing to go through.
It is, okay.
Keeps them honest from that.
Yes.
Yeah, especially if we would change to another carrier, the typical way they do business is they give us a real good first year and then make it up on the second year. With having somebody like Cook and Company, I think they would realize they can't get away with something like that.
But at the same time, I question, because believe me, as much as I would love to say, yeah, let's do it every year, and do this, I think that in one of the meetings that we had, it seemed like if we formed a reputation for being that client that went to bidding every single year, we get that reputation that no one's going to want to really play the game with us and say, all right, well, we don't want to bid on Georgetown because they're just going to go and try to bid it out again next year and to the lowest bidder, and there's no real way to form a relationship with us as a town.
You can't be switching every year, but the consultant can work with
the current provider.
The provider.
But that's not what she's planning to do for this round.
Not
right?
this year, no.
Right,
I mean,
right.
she'll, I'll have a better idea of what her approach is gonna be after I talk to her this week.
Okay.
But, yeah, because, we won't even, if we leave Maya, we can't come back for 2 years.
Right.
That was,
And I'm sure some of the other carriers have this, Maya can't be the only one that does that.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully she can negotiate, I don't even know if it's possible, a 3-year deal. You know, I don't know if they'll even go that far out, knowing the flux, you know, with this industry is in such flux that, who knows, but maybe,
Okay.
maybe worth a shot.
Can't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
Really, what's the worst that could happen?
Mr. Chairman, I had
Yep.
a couple other questions for Mike, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
A couple of quick questions. One was the house next door on the, we're short on the demo, or do I?
Yeah, I got Peter's getting me another quote. I went back to him, I said, Pete, you know, I might like to talk to you about taking it down yourself again. But
Okay.
the big cost is the getting rid of the debris, demolition debris.
Mhm.
That alone is $10,000. If you know, if Pete could even provide the transportation,
Right,
that
that's where the money is.
that was $3,000. So we could save if our guys could do the transporting, because it's not even going to go to Mello's facility. He's going to take it directly to a demolition and debris facility.
Isn't there one just right over the line in Groveland, right? Isn't there just one right over the line in Groveland?
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with it.
So my question though is, how much are we short overall? If you had to, forget Peter's
Like-
guys for a minute, if you,
20 grand.
so we're 20,000 short. I, just throwing this out, I mean, we haven't, oh, it's, the year is young, but what about a reserve fund transfer? Going to FinCom and asking for
I
it.
thought about that, but I need a line item to transfer that into. We don't have a demolition line.
Town hall maintenance.
That would be a stretch up by, I don't think Mary would, that would never go by Mary.
Fire department maintenance, public safety building
Well,
maintenance.
it could be, you know, it might go into,
I wish you guys did
materials,
practice
you
burns.
know, the materials line item in, the highway department.
There you go.
That's a
There you go.
possibility.
Another angle of looking at this, if it's only 20,000, when do we do our first payment from Healthy Farms? To the special selectmen's
next June.
account.
May.
It's a
30,
wait,
30 days after the first anniversary.
so
So it
that's,
would be 1 June.
okay. So worst case scenario, if this board so chose, and we didn't find a way to come up with that 20,000 to take that building down, that this board could give consideration to using 20,000 to take that building down. Just a thought, I'm not on either side of that, but it's a thought. No, it's going to a special selectmen's account.
So, have we talked to G Mello regarding
Yeah, but that's
bringing it
with
to the
grandfather,
transfer
yeah.
station and see what the cost was there?
Oh, it'd be more, because he'd be moving it twice.
Right.
No, if we brought it, yeah.
It would be more, because then he still has to take it to the final destination.
But no negotiations there, like we haven't been able to.
Well, I'm meeting with him on Wednesday. You know,
Okay.
I will talk further about it and see if I can do a combination with him and the highway department, something like that. Plus, like I said, Peter's getting me another quote from, I think, the Groveland people.
My other question, Mr. Chairman, was another matter that's come across my radar screen as far as emails are concerned, was that the bypass road for the Pembroke School. You know, I was on the committee and I was adamant that I would not support the project unless we had that emergency bypass road, which was not ever intended to become a formal road for general travel. Well, lo and behold, somebody has filed for a permit to put houses and use that road as access to that development. And, Carol's kept me in the loop. I don't know if anybody else has seen these emails, but I find that quite disturbing. Now, I know Jill Mann is involved, so maybe maybe this is just a planning board issue and it shouldn't even be discussed at this level. I don't know. But all I know is that was supposed to be just for an emergency. That gate's supposed to be locked at the bottom. There's heavy equipment up in there, and I know that.
Not anymore.
Right, I heard they were told to get out of there. And
Gate is locked.
do we know any details? Is there an actual easement that allows people to use?
Well, first of all, what happened was somebody went up there. The people who own the lots that were landlocked,
Right.
are landlocked.
Right,
We're doing test pits.
perk testing, right?
Perk testing.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that went up there. They did damage the road with their Caterpillar, and they'll be paying for that.
Good.
And they went off the edge of it and cracked it too.
Yep.
They destroyed some stone walls.
Right, because that was a huge discussion about those stone walls. And,
They
and
claim they're stone walls. So,
the preservation of the stone walls was a huge discussion that we had. And also, we settled with the person at the beginning of that, the way I understand it.
yes.
We settled that whole argument about, usage and land and where they were parking and all that stuff. I'm hoping that this can't happen, but.
Well, you're right that Attorney Mann is representing the landowners. She presented to us a pile of information where they say they have a legal right of way through that emergency access. We're not ready to accept that yet. Jonathan Eichman is working with Jill Mann. They're comparing notes, and we're taking the approach that that is, it gets back to some really old deeds. And in fact, one theory is that those lots had access, but on the other side of their lots. And somebody built a house across the access point. So they no longer have.
But that's not a town issue. That would
No,
be
it's
between-
not.
That's right.
But it's our position that we own the strip of land in fee simple, and there's no right of way.
Right.
So
Even if there was, that wouldn't give them the right to build a road, would it? They could use it
no,
as is,
I
but if
mean,
it's not
first of
designed
all,
for commercial use,
it's
residential
not
use.
it's not a town road.
Right,
So
exactly.
they can't even build a house on it
Right,
because it's
exactly.
not on the town road. They have no frontage.
Right.
There's a whole myriad of
Okay.
issues that they're going to have to deal with. All we know right now is the Board of Health gave them permission to perk test the land, and that's what they did. And it perked for 2 single-family houses, which is what they said they were perking for. There's question on whether or not that's their ultimate goal,
Right.
because several years ago, a landowner went in there and was looking for a 10-unit senior housing development.
All right. Thank you. Kate. Thanks you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mike, anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, appointments and approvals. Sealer of weights and measures. Are they supposed to be?
No, we purposely didn't renew the previous sealer. Things have not gone well with that person. They don't do a good job, and they've been constantly questioned by the state for doing things incorrectly.
Okay.
So I talked with Charles Carroll, who's the head of the Division of Weights and Measures for the state, and they will provide weights and measure services for the town. They do it with other towns as well for the same fee of $3,000 a year. And I highly recommend matter of fact, they realized themselves that the gasoline pumps in town were expired, and he sent his own inspectors up to inspect them. I highly recommend you authorize me to sign that contract with them.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract as presented with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Standards for the purposes of weights and measures.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yes. How does this affect the people who have to have the testing done, and how does it affect the town? I mean, because we didn't pay with Mr. Rose, correct, Wallace Rose? He did it on a fee base, so it didn't cost the town anything? Am I correct?
No, they still pay the regular fee.
But we didn't pay Mr. Rose.
We pay him, we pay $112,000 to $3,000 every month.
No, so we are paying him. I thought he was doing it as a fee and it wasn't costing the town.
No.
Okay, because really, to be truthful, this is the first that I'm aware that he wasn't working out. The last that I can remember at a meeting, he was working out. So this is sort of a first, as far as I'm concerned, that he hasn't been working out. This is the first I'm hearing of it. And now being asked to, and somewhat fire him and go to the state. And I'm just concerned how it's gonna work with the state.
Well, like I
Is
said-
this, so this is $3,000 a year? This is actually a savings for the town?
No, it's the
No, same.
same cost.
So I don't know.
Pay the state.
And there's a fee charged when he comes out to the people that he does it for, or they do it?
Yes.
And will
There's-
that change, where do
No.
we set that, or does the state set that?
State sets the fees.
Okay, and that would be the same whether they're doing it or,
We get the payment, so it offsets the cost of having him do the fee.
okay, so when, in other words, it should be an even. We're losing money now because we're paying him and he's not doing it.
We haven't paid him now for.
Was he not doing it because he's not getting paid? I'm just trying to,
No, he eventually gets around to it when pressured to do it, or when it gets near the end of, as things are expiring, he'll go out and get it done. But I've asked them for lists of what devices are in town and what need to be, we know there's scales, in grocery stores that need to be certified, mostly just Crosby's. The gas pumps have to be certified. The fuel pumps at the big oil
Townsend.
Oh, Townsend.
depot.
And CVS.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say we weren't getting the quality of service that we needed from him.
No, as a matter of fact, the measuring devices he was using to certify were inaccurate.
All right, so that's enough discussion. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
nay,
Okay. So Chief is not here for Rock Pond Committee, so we'll bypass that. Now we have license approvals for business and liquor.
They expire 12/31/18, is that the way to take these, Jen?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant an all alcohol package store license to C&J Liquor DBA Johnny's Place, Georgetown Liquors, with a term to expire 12/31/18.
Okay.
Motion and second, any further discussion?
Jan, all the applications are up to date, and you have
Yes.
everything you need?
Yes, all that are here, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve a beer and wine package store for Crosby Markets, Inc., doing business as Crosby's Marketplace, with a term to expire 12/31/18.
Second?
Motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we granted all alcohol club license to the VFW Post 7609 with a term to expire 12/31.
7608.
Did I say 9? 7608 with a term to expire 12/31/18. Sorry.
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we granted all alcohol restaurant license to the Another Spot Inc., DBA The Spot, Georgetown Flatbread LLC, DBA Georgetown Flatbread, Ribo's Bistro 2 Inc., doing business as the Black Swan Country Club.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion?
Yes. Could we separate those?
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my motion. Was there a second, though?
Have
There
a
was a
second.
second.
Yeah. All right, well, we should vote and then re-vote.
Whatever.
Gary wants to separate them.
You don't have to.
Separate, what are we separating?
I was just asking if you could read those separate, not all in one. There's a couple I'm not gonna, I don't intend to vote for, but another one I would.
Got it.
The motion's out there and it's been seconded, so I guess we have to, let's move the question, Mr. Chairman, I guess.
Yep, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
No.
Yep, it passes.
Yep.
Okay, next,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant common victualler license to Johnny's Place, VFW, Crosby's Market, The Spot, Ribo's Bistro 2 Inc., Georgetown Flatbread, Boston Pie Inc., DBA is Domino's, okay. Maestra LLC, DBA Dunkin' Donuts, Pomodori, Georgetown, Charles C. Dame Lodge, AFAM. I'm gonna back up on that one, I am not gonna include that one. I'm a member of the
so you'll
lodge.
take that out?
Then let's,
All right, so we'll leave that one separate. Lola's Mix Cucina Corporation and Callie's Cones. So I
Before-
did not include Charles C. Dame
All
Lodge.
right, and before we have a second, is there any further, any of those that you want to take out from anybody else? No, okay. All right, so you have the
Everything
motion
except for
exclude.
Charles Dame, Charles C. Dame Lodge.
Okay, so we have
Second.
that in a second. Okay, all those in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Somebody else should do the lodge because I'm a member.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a common viculars license for the Charles C. Dame Lodge, AFAM, to expire, give me the date again,
12/31/18.
12/31 of 18.
Second?
motion in a second. All those in favor, oh, excuse me, further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant an automatic amusement license to the VFW,
second.
term to expire 12/31/18.
Second.
Okay,
again.
motion in a second. Any further discussion? What's automatic amusement?
That was my question.
Pinball?
Pinball machine stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
I didn't know what that
Shuffle.
was.
Here are the
Well, no, they took the shuffle.
jukebox.
Jukeboxes, yeah.
Okay,
It's a
Thank you.
pinball wizard down there, did you know that?
okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it's getting late. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant a Sunday entertainment license to the VFW, The Spot, Ribo's Bistro 2 Inc., Georgetown Flatbread, with a term to expire 12/31/18.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant a weekly entertainment license to the VFW, The Spot, Ribo's Bistro 2 Inc., and Georgetown Flatbread, with a term to expire 12/31/18.
Second.
Motion in a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the chief a question.
Yep.
Georgetown Bowling Lane, so should we renew this
Yep.
common victual
Yeah,
license?
we finished up that inspection back in April, and we left it with Mr. Perkins that we'd be back for our annual coming up, and April of 18.
Should we only go to June, or should we go through the whole year?
Um,
You don't do that for anyone else.
We could always.
yeah, I mean, if there's an issue, I can always come
Okay.
back and.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant a bowling license to the Georgetown Bowling Lanes with a term to expire 12/31/18.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant a secondhand shop license to Pratt Hobby Shop with a term to expire 12/31/18.
I'll second. Motion is a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant a trap shooting license to the Georgetown Fish and Game Association with a term to expire 12/31/18.
I'll second it.
I have some discussion on this, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I thought this is limited to Wednesdays, or is that skeet
It's Wednesdays and Sundays.
and Sundays?
It's Sundays at 1 o'clock,
Right.
Wednesday evenings.
So but this trap shooting covers, they can kind of do whatever they want, or should we put that with those dates and time, those times, days and times?
What did we
I
do
thought we
last
did,
year? Yeah,
didn't
I'm
we?
not
I
sure.
don't think we've never done any
I can't
restrictions.
remember that.
I don't know if there's
I remember we
restrictions
did
put
that.
on by anybody else, but.
All right,
I'm a member
Alright.
there, so I'll be abstaining.
okay.
As will I. Because I'm a member there also.
All right, so we got a motion. I'll second it. All right, have I already seconded it?
Somebody did.
Okay, I think I already did. Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant a Class 2 used car license to B&B Auto Clinic with a term to expire 12/31/18.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, anybody have any further discussion points?
Just, old business, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Where are we with the light,
The
street lights?
They're coming, the
18th.
18th?
Yeah.
What happened to the 4th? Well, the 4th is
They're
the
not
day.
all gonna be back in the country.
Still? Okay.
I got an email, actually, you got a CC today. They
Okay,
all
I'll have
agreed
to go check
they'd be present the 18th.
Okay, does Rob know this? Rob Hoover?
Probably not.
All right, I'll reach out to Rob, and let him know. So there you go, Gary. It's still pending, I guess. But we will have them all in front of us to discuss that further, so.
And just also, this would be old business, Mike just gave me, some information he got today from Tom McEnany on, we had asked him to look into automatic payments into the stabilization fund, if you remember at one of the meetings. Going in, I guess, I haven't really had time, because I just got this before as following the rest of you upstairs, but I think I'm somewhat in disagreement with their opinion on this. It's pretty much the same opinion that they gave us on the previous host agreement, but they are legal.
Oh, they provide advice.
Well,
Have
that's
we
what
seen
that's the
this?
point I'm trying to make. I'm in disagreement
that?
with them that it's.
No, I just
I
gave
don't
it
think I
Gary
got
tonight.
anything from that.
Can we get a copy of that sent out,
Yeah.
please?
Wow, Gary gets the preferential treatment. What was that? So before we head out, so we're nearing the end of the year, and I really liked Dave's idea last year in terms of having the board come together with their thoughts about what they've accomplished this year. Okay, and what I'd also like to ask for, if you can give me say 5 things that you feel like you've accomplished this year, I'd like to look through them and maybe even share them if you guys want to do that. But and then moving forward and on another sheet of paper, if you can give me your top 10 objectives for 2018, so that as a board, I can look at them and maybe put together a master list of some of the things that we're all looking to do for 2018. I think that would go a long way to becoming a really productive board, in the new year. So, if you guys could do it and get them to me by, say, the first meeting in January, I wouldn't want to give you too much homework for the holidays coming up. So maybe the first meeting in January, if you can get those to me, that would be great.
I'm trying to think, if I may, Mr. Chair, did you give us the objective list at the beginning of the, because typically we do this at the new formation of the board, did we do that?
No, no,
Okay.
that's the thing. I
Okay.
felt like we had enough on our plate, that,
Okay.
we were going through
Alright.
strategic planning and all that stuff. So we had enough on our plate.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
Yes, sir.
we also agreed that to change the review cycle for the town administrator from May to January.
Yes.
So we have that coming up too.
Yes, and I've discussed that with Mike. But we'll have those sheets in your inboxes coming up, Mike. Hopefully this week, next week. Okay. So we've discussed that. Anything else, guys, that you want to talk about? No. Doug, you okay?
I'm all set.
All right. So do I hear a motion? Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Next meeting, Monday, December 4th. At 7 o'clock. Same bad time, same back.
That's next Monday, right?
So,
Next Monday?
That is next Monday, right?
Yeah, we're
Yes.
back to back.
we are back to back only because of the holiday. If we went the other way, we'd run into the holiday.
All right.
So we got the 4th and then the
18th.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone. I broke my record.